They never called me Dad. That didn't bother me at first. Titles are cheap. Presence is what matters. You show up. You hold the wheel when the road curves hard. You carry the weight without being asked. That's what I believed. Maybe that's what I needed to believe. Because I wasn't their father. I was just the man in their house. When I moved in with Lauren, the house felt like a museum to someone else's life. Todd's fingerprints were everywhere. Framed photos hung crooked on the hallway walls. Jake on a bike, Mia in a tutu, Todd in sunglasses with a crooked grin. Half the mugs in the kitchen still had his favorite teams on them. The garage was filled with the kind of tools no one used anymore. Ghosts don't leave footprints, but they leave clutter. I never asked her to take any of it down. Jake was 13, tall already, voice cracking, always wearing a hoodie even when it was 90 degrees outside. He watched me like I was a glitch in his world. Said little, but made it clear with every shrug and sigh what he thought I was doing there. Mia was 11, brighter, softer at first. She asked 100 questions. Did I like dogs? Could I cook spaghetti? What music did I listen to when I was her age? Like she was building a file on me. Their father, Todd, wasn't gone. Just absent. A myth wrapped in promises. The occasional weekend dad, all fireworks and fast food. He had a gift for arriving late and leaving early. But somehow, he lived larger in their minds than I ever could. That's the thing about ghosts. They're always perfect. You never see them sweat. You never watch them fail. But I stayed. That's what I did. Parent-teacher conferences. Sprained ankles. Broken phones. Mia's braces. Jake's first F on a math quiz. I didn't stand over them with rules. I stood beside them with structure. I figured that was what counted. Consistency. A net. Something steady in a house that had known too much breakage. I didn't want medals. I just wanted to matter. Lauren said she admired my patience. Said most men would have walked away. I didn't tell her how many nights I sat in my car after work, engine off, fingers tight on the steering wheel, wondering if I was building something or just patching someone else's wreckage. After 2 years, they started calling me Brian instead of Hey. After 3, Mia gave me a Father's Day card. A drawing of the 4 of us at a picnic. I still remember what it said inside. Thank you for being here even when it's hard. I notice. 8 words. I read them like scripture. I told myself it meant something permanent. I was wrong. Lauren and I agreed early on. If the kids wanted college, we'd make it happen. Even if Todd never chipped in. Especially if he didn't. She said, they'll need all of us. I said, count me in. I opened 2 savings accounts. One for Jake, one for Mia. Nothing flashy. Just careful deposits. I skipped raises, turned down a promotion that would have moved us out of state. I picked up freelance projects, did bookkeeping for a friend's startup after hours, taxed myself into exhaustion. Also, there'd be no gap when the time came. No, we'll figure it out. Just, here's the check. I wanted them to feel safe. To know someone was thinking 10 years ahead when they couldn't see past the weekend. Jake got into music. Mia joined the debate team. I showed up for every performance, every meet, even when they acted like they didn't see me. I clapped harder than anyone. I kept showing up. I kept showing up. Then, about a year before graduation, Todd returned. Slicker than ever. New girlfriend. New car. New narrative. He started showing up to events again. Front row. Big smiles. Phone always out. He came with gifts, Beats headphones for Jake, a MacBook for Mia. Talked about starting a college fund soon. Promised to co-sign their loans. Took them out for sushi. Said things like, this time, I'm all in. Lauren believed it. Or pretended to. It's good for them, she said one night. They need to see their father trying. I didn't argue. Not then. But I watched. I watched Jake's face shift when Todd laughed too loud at the dinner table. I watched Mia lean into her dad's stories about the good old days. I watched their eyes glow with borrowed nostalgia, as if Todd had always been there and I had just stepped into the wrong house. One night, I overheard Jake telling a friend on the phone, my real dad's stepping up now. It's kind of amazing. And just like that, 8 years shrunk into a footnote. But I kept showing up. Because that's what you do, right? You don't quit on kids just because they're starry-eyed. You don't pull the plug because someone else learned how to say the right things. I held my breath through that whole year. I thought it was a phase. Thought the shine would wear off, that Todd would vanish again, and they'd remember who stayed. And then came the night that shattered it. We were sitting around the dining table, the same one I'd refinished the year before. Lauren made lasagna. I'd brought out spreadsheets, scholarships, tuition estimates, school comparisons. I'd been planning for weeks. It was supposed to be the moment we turned dreams into reality. Jake barely glanced at the pages. Mia scrolled through her phone. Then she looked up and said, her voice flat, "Shouldn't our real parents be talking about this?" I didn't understand at first. I thought she meant biological, maybe legal, something technical. Then Jake added, "Brian, we appreciate everything, really, but we think Mom and Dad should handle this now." He said it like a memo, like a decision had already been made. Mia didn't even blink. Lauren froze, knife hovering over garlic bread, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. And that was the moment. Right there. That was the end. Not a fight. Not a blowout. Just that sentence. That erasure. 8 years vanished. I didn't say a word. I pushed back from the table, stood up, and walked down the hallway. In my office, I opened the accounts. Jake's first, then Mia's. $78,000 in total. Tuition, housing, expenses, it was all there. I transferred every dollar into a separate account under my name. Then I called the schools. Told them to remove me as financial sponsor. Told them their real parents would be handling everything from now on. It took less than an hour to undo what I'd spent 8 years building. The next morning, I made coffee, left early for work, and didn't look back. 2 weeks later, the collapse began. I wish I could tell you I hesitated, that I wrestled with guilt, that I sat in the dark waiting for a voice to stop me. But I didn't. The silence in that house was already too familiar. Their rejection didn't land like a bomb. It landed like confirmation, like a door that had always been cracked finally swinging shut. They said it themselves. Mom and Dad should handle this now. So I let them. Jake's tuition payment failed first. 2 weeks after the dinner, the university called Lauren, not me. Funny how quickly they learn who actually pays when the checks don't clear. She answered the call in the kitchen, voice rising, confusion tightening her words. She looked at me after she hung up. Not with anger, not with panic. Just that brittle, exhausted confusion that comes when a system you relied on stops working. I didn't offer an explanation. I went back to fixing the garbage disposal. Later that day, Mia's situation detonated. She had already started orientation, dorm move-in, class schedules, meal plans set. $13,000 outstanding. Suddenly, it was urgent. Suddenly, my silence became unforgivable. Lauren confronted me that night. The kids were upstairs, stomping through their own storms. She stood in the hallway in a threadbare hoodie, arms folded like armor. "You didn't really cancel the accounts, did you?" I looked her in the eye. "I honored their request. Their real parents will handle it now." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "You promised," she whispered. "No." I corrected. "We promised. But then you sat silent while they revoked my place in this family. That silence was your signature." She didn't speak after that, just turned away and shut the bedroom door. The fallout didn't come all at once. Trickled in, one call, one angry voicemail, one email at a time. Jake texted first. No greeting. No punctuation. "You're just going to abandon us?" I didn't respond. I archived it, like a receipt from a place I no longer shopped. Then came the emails. Mia sent paragraphs. Accusations disguised as heartbreak. "You said you were here for us. You said we mattered. You're proving you never meant it." It hurt, not because it was true, but because I remembered the girl who once handed me handmade cards with glitter and glue and called me her second chance. She was gone, replaced by someone Todd had reawakened. Someone who now believed a few concert tickets and broken promises added up to fatherhood. Jake showed up the next night. Hoodie pulled low, hands in pockets. He rang the doorbell like he wasn't sure if it would still work. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "I just don't get it," he said. "Why would you do this now? After everything?" "You told me what I was," I replied. "I'm just listening." He scoffed, looked away. "So this is what? Power play?" I shook my head. "No. This is a boundary. You said I wasn't your parent. Now your parents will carry you." He stood there a moment longer, face hard but eyes fraying. Then he left. No goodbye. Mia never came. That was her style. Distance and detachment. She sent another email, longer this time, crueler. "You're not punishing us. You're punishing yourself. You just proved you were never our dad." And maybe she was right. Maybe I'd spent too long trying to buy a role that wasn't for sale. Lauren retreated. She moved through the house like a ghost. Quiet, watchful. Her face said everything she wouldn't. But it didn't matter. The line had been drawn. I didn't cross it. Neither did they. Then, 1 week after the collapse, Lauren sat beside me on the porch. It was just after sundown. The kind of blue hour that makes everything feel colder than it is. She was crying before she even spoke. "They get it now," she said. Her voice was barely audible, like it hurt to say it out loud. I didn't respond. She wiped her face with her sleeve. "Todd bailed. Said it's not his responsibility. Told Jake he was only trying to reconnect, not take over. Told Mia she should have been more grateful." I stared out at the backyard. The grass I had mowed every Saturday. The fence I had rebuilt after the storm last spring. Every inch of it paid for in time and calluses. "He told them to come back to you," Lauren said. "He said, that's Brian's job." Of course he did. It's easy to look like a hero when someone else is paying the bill. But the moment the check clears, the show ends. And he always vanishes before the encore. "He said," she paused, voice cracking, "that you should have known better than to take it all so seriously." I laughed once. A short, bitter thing. That was the most honest thing Todd ever said. Lauren touched my arm. "You didn't deserve this." That was the problem. I had convinced myself that love had to be earned. That if I gave enough, stayed long enough, endured hard enough, I would become undeniable. But family doesn't work that way. Not for stepfathers. We are tolerated, measured, used. I was the scaffolding, the temporary structure. I held everything up while they rebuilt their fantasies. And now the structure was gone. Jake got a job. Retail. Long hours, late nights. He sent Lauren a text. "Tell Brian I'm figuring it out." Mia deferred her semester. Started working at a cafe. Wrote a post online about toxic male figures and how stepping back from expectations was liberating. I said nothing. Lauren and I stayed together, but something cracked. Something quiet and unfixable. She started using phrases like "your money" and "my kids." Tiny distinctions that sliced deeper than she realized. I stopped offering. Stopped reminding them to eat. Stopped checking their grades. Stopped asking how they were doing. I didn't do it to be cruel. I did it because I finally saw the truth. You can't raise a family that doesn't recognize your hands in the foundation. You can't carry children who never asked to be held. 1 month later, Jake came to the house again. No hoodie. No anger. Just a man with tired eyes and calloused hands. He handed me a card. Inside was his graduation photo. He had finished his semester through night classes and extra shifts. "I paid for this myself," he said. "Took me longer, but I did it. I wanted you to have this. Because even if I never said it before, you're the reason I made it." I didn't speak, just nodded. Later that night, I put the card in the same folder where I used to keep their college plans. Not out of nostalgia. Not out of pain. Out of closure. There's a difference between healing and forgetting. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. A year after the dust settled, I closed the education accounts for good. Moved the money into a separate fund. My name only. I started painting again. Small canvases. Nothing serious. But it helped. Creation without expectation. One night, I found myself staring at an old photo. The four of us at the beach. Me holding Mia on my shoulders. Jake pretending not to smile. I almost threw it out. Instead, I tucked it into a drawer. Not out of sentiment, but to remind myself, some things only live in pictures. And that's where they should stay. Guilt is a muscle. It grows where love once lived. And like any muscle, if you feed it long enough, it starts to control you. That's what I felt in those first few months. Not relief, not freedom, just the twitch and burn of guilt regrowing under my ribs. But I didn't feed it. I let it ache. Jake took the hit first. He was smart, but not the type who cared for systems. Deadlines. Paperwork. I'd been the structure under his talent, the late-night proofreader, the FAFSA whisperer, the guy who made sure signatures landed where they were supposed to. Without me, things got missed. Deadlines passed. Loans fell through. He scrambled to plug the holes I used to cover with one phone call. Lauren didn't say anything, but I saw it in the way she looked at him. The quiet worry. The resentment starting to bloom. Not toward me, but toward the man she had defended all those years. The man who made promises and vanished before the ink dried. Mia folded slower. She clung to the fantasy longer. She kept waiting for Todd to come through. He didn't. 3 weeks after I canceled the payments, Mia posted a story on social media. A grainy photo of her working behind a cafe counter. The caption read, "Hustle never lies. Can't trust anyone but yourself." No mention of the college plan I'd built. No hint of the thousands I had saved. Just rebellion wrapped in pride. I didn't comment. Didn't like the post. Didn't even show it to Lauren. Some things are meant to rot quietly. But the silence had weight. Pressed on Lauren most. One night, after we'd both climbed into bed, but before either of us had closed our eyes, she whispered, "Do you ever think maybe we went too far?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know who we meant. Me who gave, her who stood by, them who chose. Or did we just mean the version of this family that could still pretend we were whole? Jake got serious around month 3. He stopped asking, stopped waiting. He picked up 2 jobs, cut back to part-time classes. He started driving a dented Corolla with one hubcap missing, bought it off Craigslist, cash in hand. I recognized the look in his eyes when he drove up to the house one day. Exhaustion, but also something else. Ownership. He didn't stay long. Just dropped off a package. Some extra dishes Mia had left behind when she moved out. He said, "Tell her they're in the garage," then turned to leave. I called his name once. He paused. "You doing okay?" I asked. He shrugged. "I'm doing. Okay's a stretch." That was all. But it was the first honest thing we'd said to each other in months. Mia was a slower unraveling. She stayed angry longer. That's how grief works in some people. It wears anger like armor. I heard about her through Lauren. "She's working too much," she said one morning. "Barely sleeping. She's pale." I stirred my coffee. Lauren stared at the floor. "She says you betrayed her." I didn't reply, because that's the thing about betrayal. It only works if there was a bond. What Mia and I had was something more fragile. Something borrowed. And when Todd stepped in, she returned me. Fall turned to winter. The house grew cold, not from the weather, but from the absence. The unspoken. Lauren and I passed each other like coworkers in a quiet office. Cordial. Efficient. Absent. One night, I found her in the garage, standing in front of the college folder, the one I used to update every week. She was crying. Not loudly. Just enough to make her shoulders shake. "I should have said something," she murmured. I said nothing. Not because I didn't agree, but because it was too late for that kind of confession. Too much had happened in silence for words to mean anything now. But there was one moment that broke through. It was New Year's Eve. I was in the backyard, watching the neighbors' fireworks, when Jake pulled into the driveway, alone. He walked up to me, hands shoved in the pockets of a threadbare jacket. "I'm not staying long," he said. "Didn't think you were," I replied. He pulled something from his pocket. A photo. His graduation. It was a community college, not the dream school we'd once planned for. No cap and gown. Just a certificate and a smile that looked earned. "I paid for this myself," he said. "Took longer. Didn't do it your way. But I did it. I took the photo. My hands shook more than I expected. I wanted you to have this, he continued, because even if I didn't say it before, I know who actually helped me get here. He didn't cry. Neither did I. We didn't hug. There was no music. No montage. Just two men standing in the cold, finally facing the cost of silence. I put the photo in the folder that night. Not as a trophy. Not as proof. As a receipt. A few weeks later, Mia came by. She didn't knock. Just walked in like she used to. She looked smaller. Tired. She sat at the kitchen table like it was foreign to her now. I heard about Jake, she said. I nodded. I'm starting school again. Got into a local program. It's not what I wanted, but it's something. Good, I said. She hesitated. Then, I'm not here to ask for money. I know. But I wanted to say. She stopped. Started again. I was cruel. I didn't mean to be. I was just angry. I know. She looked up, eyes wet. I think I forgot how much you gave. I nodded again. Then stood up and walked to the hallway. Came back with a cardboard box. Set it on the table. Inside were the cards. The drawings. The Father's Day notes. The photos. The glitter-glued confessions of a girl who once believed I was solid ground. She stared at the box. Tears fell silently. I never threw them away, I said. She whispered. Why? Because even if you forgot, I didn't. That was the last time she cried in front of me. She hugged me then, brief, shaking, and left without another word. After that, things changed. Not drastically, not cinematically, but the edge dulled. The wound scarred. Jake still worked 2 jobs. Mia still lived on a budget. Lauren still carried quiet regret like it was furniture she couldn't throw out. And me? I stopped carrying what wasn't mine. I gave up the role of almost dad. Stopped waiting to be named. Stopped offering what no one asked for. But I kept the receipts. All of them. Because someday someone will try to rewrite the story. Say it wasn't that bad. Say I overreacted. But those photos? Those cards? That folder of unpaid invoices and frozen bank accounts? They tell the real story. The one where love gave everything. And got measured before it was accepted. A month ago, Lauren asked me if I wanted to come to dinner. Jake and Mia would be there. Nothing fancy. Just a family meal. I said no. Not out of spite. Not out of vengeance. Out of clarity. I gave them years. Now I was giving them absence. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can give a broken house is space to collapse. A year after the divorce, Lauren texted me at 10:46 p.m. Not hi. Not are you awake? Just, we need to talk urgently. I stared at the message for a long time. My thumb hovered over the screen, unmoving. I knew that tone. Not emotional. Not regretful. Functional. Desperate in disguise. I replied, if there's anything left to say, write it here. You no longer have my time. She typed for a while. I watched the bubbles appear and disappear like a heartbeat trying to restart. Then finally, please. I didn't respond. I didn't call. I didn't go. I turned off my phone, slid it under the pillow, and went to sleep. The next morning, I got a call from a notary I'd never heard of. Lauren had just discovered the check, the accounts, and the documents I'd filed during the divorce. All legal. All quiet. She didn't want a conversation. She needed a signature. One she'd already lost. The final withdrawal was never loud. It didn't come in a screaming match or a slammed door. Came in stages. Silent, deliberate. The day after the college accounts were closed, I also closed the joint savings Lauren and I had opened for emergencies. I left her a list of the remaining shared utilities. Gave her 60 days. On the 61st, I shut off my contributions. No fights. No threats. Just the subtraction of self. She'd spent too long letting me be a provider and a placeholder. Now she would learn what it meant to stand without the scaffolding. It didn't take long. 3 months post-separation, Jake sent a text. Mom's struggling. Thought you should know. I replied. So am I. But no one's checking on me. For words from him came next. You were always solid. Strange how they learn to say the right things only when you stop listening. Mia took longer. She reached out 6 months later. A voicemail, not a text. Her voice cracked halfway through. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. For being blind. I deleted it after one listen. Not because it didn't matter, but because I knew keeping it would make me start caring again. And I couldn't afford that. When you give too long without being seen, you become invisible. People think endurance is strength. That if you keep showing up, one day someone will say, thank you. I see you. But some families only know how to consume. Not build. Not protect. Just take. And take. I had spent 8 years believing that persistence would buy me a place in their hearts. That if I filled in the gaps Todd left behind, they'd eventually stop measuring me against his shadow. But all I became was the filler. The drywall they painted over. The foundation they walked across. I built their future on my back, and they stood on my spine to reach for a man who never stayed. Now they know the truth. Now they feel the weight of absence. Now they understand the price of dismissing someone who holds everything up. Jake's student loans were approved, but at brutal interest rates. Mia had to delay graduation by another semester. Lauren picked up a second job, one I used to cover with weekend overtime and tax refunds I never told her about. They've adjusted. That's what people do. But they don't smile the same. I see it in the photos Lauren occasionally posts, a birthday, a graduation, a Sunday brunch. The light's still there, but the frame is cracked. They learned that fathers are not default settings. They don't arrive ready-made. They're built, brick by brick. And when you bulldoze them for someone who only shows up for the finish line, you get an empty podium. A friend asked me recently, would you do it all again? And I answered, without flinching, yes, but only once. Because love is never wasted, even when it ends. Even when it's unseen. It's only wasted when it becomes expectation. I never expected a parade, but I expected truth, respect, presence returned. Instead, I got revisionist history and polite apologies delivered too late to matter. I didn't want them to worship me. I just wanted them to look me in the eye and say, you mattered, before the check bounced. There's a drawer in my apartment, the top right one in my desk. Inside is a folder, thick, worn. In it, Jake's graduation photo, Mia's first drawing of us grilling, every handmade card that ever called me, almost dad, or thanks for being here, printouts of bank transfers, canceled checks, screenshots of texts that read, we only listen to mom and dad. It's not a shrine. It's not a grave. It's a ledger, a record of the debt I finally stopped paying. The worst part? They weren't cruel. Not really. Just careless. That's the danger of being consistent. People confuse your sacrifices for background noise. Your labor becomes invisible. Your love becomes air necessary, but unnoticed, until you stop breathing. Then and only then do they gasp. I still think about Mia sometimes. Her voice on that voicemail. The soft break in the middle. How she tried to piece together what she'd torn apart with a single sentence at that dinner table. I wonder if she still believes what she said that night. That I was never their dad. I wonder if she knows she was right, but not in the way she meant. No, I wasn't their dad. I was the man who showed up when their dad disappeared. I was the man who paid for the things their dad promised. I was the one who sat through emergencies and waited outside operating rooms. The one who remembered appointments and birthdays and allergies. The one who stayed. And staying, I learned, isn't enough. You can't force family. You can only offer it. Once. After that, it's up to them. I still get Father's Day texts from Jake now. Short. Cautious. Thinking of you. Hope you're well. Thanks for everything. I reply sometimes. With a thumbs up. Or nothing. Because I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done teaching the same lesson twice. Now I ask you, whoever you are, was I wrong? Was I wrong to draw a line after years of standing in the gap? Was I wrong to stop pouring from a cup they refused to refill? Was I cruel to let the consequences fall where the contempt began? You tell me, would you have endured it? Would you have kept paying to be ignored? Would you have stayed at a table where no one passed the salt, but still expected you to cook? This is not a confession. It's a reckoning. And the truth is this: the man who walks away isn't always the villain. Sometimes, he's just the last one who ever stood still long enough to be counted.